I'm Hazel, it's Saturday again, which makes it time to sit down and catch up on the WoW news of the week, what I've been up to, and actually answer some questions this time. This week we got some fresh 9.2 news off the PTR, some of it centering around this new item that's been data mined, the Vessel of Profound Possibilities. This is on a reputation vendor for Exalted Reputation, but it's not just Exalted Reputation. What the item does is it gives you all conduits and then catches them all up to 278, so it's pretty cool. But in order to get it, you need to get Exalted with the new Reputation Enlightened and one of 3 other achievements, which are pretty toasty. One of those things is a mythic raid clear of the new raid, the Sepulcher are the first ones. The second option is elite rank in PvP, which would require 2400 rating in RBGs or an arena. And the third option is a Keystone Hero achievement in Mythic Plus, which is going to need you to time a plus 20 key. I would say that doing a Necrotic Wake 20 is probably the easiest of those requirements, but none of them are particularly easy, and it's made the intended purpose of this item kind of confusing because it's a conduit catch-up item, but it's BOP currently, and by the time that you've done one of those things, I betcha your conduits are looking pretty good. Based on all of this, my take is that this is clearly not finished yet, and I'll form an opinion after they change some of this stuff because none of that makes any sense. Other 9.2 news of the week, we learned that double legendaries are going to require Revered reputation with the Enlightened, which is the new Zereth Mortis rep. That has caused some consternation in the community because some people, a lot of people, possibly myself included, have been kind of under the assumption that Zereth Mortis was not going to be tied to player power based on a Morgan Day interview back in November. And what was actually said in the Morgan Day interview back in November is that the Cipher of the First One system is not going to be tied to player power, but nothing said that Zereth Mortis or the reputation wouldn't be. That distinction, however, wasn't terribly clear, and some people kind of thought they would never have to do the new zone in order to raid and do keys and whatnot, and are now rather upset that they'll need to get some reputation in order to get their double legendaries. It does appear to at least be an account-wide unlock, and it's at Revered on the new rep instead of Exalted, so I'm fine with this. It seems pretty par for the course that you need to get some rep with the new faction before you can get something like that, and I'm just kind of glad that we only have to do it once, but I do see where the confusion came from. I think that almost everybody that plays 9.2 is probably going to end up engaging with the Cipher system as well for at least the first 2 and a bit weeks of it, because that's how you're going to unlock flying. So anyways, it seems like you're definitely going to want to at least get the rep to Revered once, but you may be free after that. Other updates this week, we got a blue post from the devs in regards to the solo shuffle PvP brawl in the Community Council forums. Talks about a couple of things, but the big takeaways are that there are some pretty substantial lever penalties to try to counter the practice where people might queue into solo shuffle and then say, oh no, I don't like this comp, and then leave. There's some pretty substantial penalties to both their rating and then also a stacking deserter debuff that makes it harder and longer to get back into the queue, which should hopefully help. And then they mentioned that prop paladins are going to be considered their own thing, and they'll have to fight other prop paladins, and then tanks will be the same way, but they'll be separate from the prop paladins, so tanks will fight teams with tanks, prop paladin teams will fight teams with other prop paladins, and then everybody else can just live separately. At least that's the way that I read this. And speaking of PvP, Blizzard has announced the WoW Esports plans for 2022. They got 3 tournaments here. You got your MDI, you've got your Arena World Championship, and then you've also got a TBC Arena tournament, and they've allocated $1.8 million in prize pool funding across the 3 of them. So they have fancy infographics that detail the brackets and all that. Most of this is going to be kicking off in sort of late February, early March-ish, which could, in theory, hint to a mid-February patch release, but it's entirely possible that they have the tournaments independent of the patch release and just run them on the old patch, so we'll see. In my life this week, I got my new desk and I have my brand new office set up, and it looks remarkably like my previous offices, probably because it has the same stuff in it. It's a different cat tree. See, I changed something. It's familiar, and I'm very, very pleased with all this. I'm delighted to be off of the postage stamp dining table. Also, there's nobody behind those curtains. It's just the way the rod is installed in the window. I guess there's plants behind the curtains, or at least one plant, but I'm sure there will be more. And then in WoW this week, I put together a speed set on my druid, despite not wanting to carry around even more gear. I've heard about this thing where you can stack a bunch of speed gear and a bunch of like Azurite gear with a long strider trait on it on a druid character to just go crazy fast in instances in cat form. So I put together a set like that for fun. I go 199% speed in cat form with like no sprint buffs or anything like that. add in Soul Shape Dash and then also Tiger Dash, and you're zooming through old instances just to farm like, transmog and then stuff to sell. It's not like I could probably make more gold if I just ran callings on alts, but I am having fun and that's what matters. And also, for anyone who wanted to know, I am planning raid guides for the new raid. They will be out, or at least the first 9 of them will be out before the raid launches. The last 3 of them are kind of tricky because for the first time they are choosing to not raid test some of the bosses, so I don't think I'm gonna get any guides together until after I see those fights myself on live, and that could take a little bit. I could try and scrape something together with just the dungeon journal, but it's hard to tell what is going on with fights until you really see them sometimes. So I'll say the last 3 are kind of TBD, but the first 9 I will have out in time. And questions for this week, Derek would like to know, what are you most hoping for in the next expansion and patch 10.0? So if I had like a big macro wish list for the next expansion, I would say player housing, ideally cosmetic only player housing that we like keep for many expansions. That would make me cry. Happy tears. Relaxed faction restrictions so that everybody can kind of play together. I could have like an undead character and raid with an alliance guild. That would be really cool. And simpler or fewer systems. This is probably just me, but I'm in the mood for like a cleaner expansion. Like you could make a brand new expansion and just be like, here's some new zones and dungeons and world quests and reputations and a raid and Mythic Plus season and a PvP season. And here's your raid gear, have some tier sets, fine. But I don't know if I need all the other stuff. That's plenty, throw some mounts and pets and toys in there to collect. That will keep me busy. And I think that it will be less confusing to navigate, especially for new people or people that come in mid-patch, if there aren't so many interlocking systems and catch-up mechanics, which are kind of necessitated by all the interlocking systems. I just kind of want like a clean X-Pack, like a palette cleanser, so we can figure out which types of borrowed power we miss and which ones we can do without. Also, a new class would be cool, but only if it's really good, because if not, it just complicates things more. And Lucky Online asks, what is there left to work on while we wait for 9.2? So if you're playing casually, it depends on what kind of things you like to do. For me, I have been collecting. There are still a lot of mounts, pets, and toys, especially mounts actually, that are still left for me to collect in the original Shadowlands zones. So I've been working through that. There's also alts and gold farming. Gold farming never goes away, and it doesn't hurt to have some gold before a new patch. I wouldn't say it's necessary. And if none of that really does it for you, there's nothing wrong with taking a break. You could play another game, you could pick up a hobby, you could go like count birds, or what do people do? Crochet, fight people, like with consent. I don't know, the world's your oyster. And Swordman wants to know, what was your personal rankings of Mage Tower challenges in terms of difficulty? Not that any of them were easy. Yeah, also I should clarify, when I said I did the rest of the Mage Tower challenges, I definitely meant I just did the 7 for the book mount. I did not do 36, and I probably will never do 36. That's intense. So yeah, my rankings, I actually, in the morning after I finished them, I totted them up on a notepad on stream. So I just grabbed the screen grab of that to refresh my memory. The hardest by far was Twins on Shadow Priest. It took me like over 3 times as long as the next hardest challenge and was just ludicrously apart from the rest in terms of difficulty. Shadow Priest was gross. The next hardest one after that, I would say, is the Healer Challenge, just because the beginning of the Healer Challenge is quite tough. And then it's also so long to finish the thing that like you can learn to get through the beginning of it, but then you have to just not mess up for another like 13 minutes. And there's so many opportunities to mess up. The rest of the fight's not that bad, but when you have to do the beginning of it all over again, the Healer Challenge is just an endurance challenge. I would put Guardian Druid underneath that one because it didn't actually feel that difficult or complicated compared to the other ones, but it was frustrating because every death I had, and I died 57 times. I got it on, I think, my 58th attempt. Every death, or most of them, were just knockbacks that were so easily preventable, but you just get like busy or distracted or focused on something else, and then you've been boofed off the edge, which is so tilting when you're like almost there. Guardian was probably the one that made me the most frustrated, partly because it was my last one. On the other end of the scale with the easiest ones, I would say Sigrun Enhancement Shaman was easiest for me. I think my trinkets carried me a lot, and then I also had a lot of very custom advice from friends that had done that one before. And then BM Hunter was also pretty easy once I squared away my macros and my DBM sounds, because at that point it basically becomes a Simon Says game of kill the totem, scare beast the worm, kick the thing, you know? I killed it very slowly, but I did kill it eventually. And that has been the week. Thank you very much for watching. If you have a question for one of these videos, leave it in the comments, include the word question. If you want to watch a stream from me, come say hi on Twitch. I do that 6 days a week. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day.